Hello out there in YouTube land.
Welcome back.
Today we thought we'd give you a little bit of an entertaining treat.
An amusement.
And talk about things that actually scare Tabby and I. Or at least it did at one time.
It did at one time.
So these are literally childhood nightmares we have had in our lives.
Read into it what you will.
Yes. we offer no explanations.
No, we're just going to tell you what the nightmares were, and like I said, read into it if you want.
And, you know, you can get an idea as, you know, the type of people Tabby and I actually are from this, I guess.
Yeah, from a very early age. So, I guess, I don't know, I used to sleep in a Dracula t-shirt. So, this is important. Here's little me, and little me was probably around 4 or 5. In my, you know, not the Dracula movie t-shirt. My mom just had a random Dracula, like gothic style t-shirt that I took and slept in. So, this dream started out pretty normal, because I slept, you know, in my little bed. And I got up, and sometimes I would have to get up and get a drink of water, or wake my mom up, or wake my dad up. But it was stormy, and it was stormy in the dream, which, you know, probably carried over. Walk through the house, so it was even, you know, chilly like it would have been, very realistic. And I heard something at what would have been our back door, and we had a curtain that you could pull aside and see, like, who was out there, if anybody, and I opened the curtain. I'm up on my tiptoes like this because, you know, I'm freaking short, being a kid. And staring right back at me was this red-eyed, snarly-lipped hellhound. And we stared at each other for quite a bit, and then I woke up, and I ran directly and took a launching leap right between my mom and dad and did not get out of bed. And nor would I tell them what that was all about. But from that moment on, and for years after that, I did not, anybody, like, even during the day, if anybody knocked on the door, I wouldn't go to the door.
Oh my gosh.
So, and now a hellhound doesn't bother me.
No. Well, one of my earliest nightmares I remember ever having is probably the most epic nightmare.
This one's good.
Okay, so, alright, this is, you know, I was probably, you know, 2, 3 years old. I have a very, very long memory, so I remember being very young. But this nightmare consisted of an acoustic guitar. Okay, let's start there. Let's start with an acoustic guitar, which everybody's probably at this point like, huh? Okay.
Oh, it gets better.
Oh yes. So it's a black acoustic guitar, which in the 70s that was very unusual. You would not see a black acoustic guitar. All the acoustic guitars you saw in the stores were the, you know, pine wood, whatever. Black was not really done. So, solid black acoustic guitar, it had kind of like lighter color wood inlaid around the outside of it so you could see the definition of the edges of the guitar. Well, it's vertical in my dream. The problem being it's floating roughly 3 feet off the ground vertical.
It's haunted.
Yes. And it's floating out of my bedroom to be down the hallway coming toward me in the hallway. Now, as a little kid, this hallway was pretty long to me. But in reality, it was only like 7 feet long. It was a little short thing. But, you know, in my kid's mind, that's a long way. And the guitar's floating outside of my bedroom that is, the lights are off in the bedroom, so it's like a black maw. So this acoustic guitar is floating outside of the black maw. Sticking out of the hole of the guitar are Muppets. With big pointy teeth.
That's a problem.
Yes. And so you have this black guitar floating like this and they're going and they want to eat me. That was my dream, was this floating black guitar with the muzzle going
We need to draw that.
We do.
We need to draw that. So, kind of in that same, like, cartoony, like, Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, I'm sure, remembers the Ghostbusters
Oh,
cartoon.
yes.
So this became a running joke in grad school between Dani and my husband, now my husband. There was a specific episode as a child that scared the bejesus out of me. And I think it was because it was so unnatural. It was the episode with the curse of the were-chicken. So, yeah. And the funny thing is during grad school, most of my projects, my research, utilized chickens. Because we were looking at all these different physiological mechanisms. So the running joke became I was going to go to the barn one night and the were-chicken was going to be there. For like a solid 6 months, I think I was scared to death of a were-chicken. I mean, the thing looked awful on the cartoon.
It did.
So we look it up.
We'll see if we can find a photo of the were-chicken to put up there so everybody knows what the heck we're talking about.
So as a child, I was scared shitless of a were-chicken that doesn't even exist. But
that's part of a cartoon.
I mean, I even had nightmares that that thing was coming to get me because I think part of me didn't want to be a were-chicken.
Well, I can understand that.
It's like werewolf, fine, whatever. I can deal with werewolf, but were-chicken. That's just terrible.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
Okay, another of my very earliest nightmares. I have this trend of like really unique things. So we lived in this little blue house. And our back porch was like big concrete slabs. So you come down and it had like a metal awning over top of it. Well, in my dream, I'd gone outside and right next to the porch was a little like redwood fence that separated the porch area from like a little bit of the yard that was underneath like the bathroom window and stuff. Yeah. And Mom had some flowers planted over in there. Well, in my dream, I had walked out of the back door and had gone down the steps and stuff, and I was heading out toward to where we used to have our dog. He was a house dog, but we'd let him out to use the restroom and stuff, and we would chain him to the tree so he'd be safe to play in the yard for a while, but then we'd, take him back inside and stuff when, he was too hot or too cold, depending on the season and stuff. But my dream was like springtime, so he was outside enjoying the sun and whatever, and I could see him, and so I was going out to pet him, and I paused because I wanted to look at the flowers. Mom had like crocuses and stuff planted in that little garden and stuff. So I paused and somehow, don't ask me where this came from, but suddenly I ended up with one of those giant like circular fish bowls on my head.
Oh Lord.
And it was full of bees.
Being allergic to bees, that would scare the absolute bejesus
I was scared to death, and they were stinging me and stuff, and in my dream I died because the bees stung me inside this metal, or not metal, but glass fish bowl on my head. Now, where in the hell that came from, being that young, I have no idea. I know that I didn't like bees because I'd gotten stung and they hurt. Yeah. But where specifically this idea of being killed with like a glass dome on your head full of bees come from, I have no clue. I don't even remember even any film that had that in there, so I don't know where that came from.
I don't know. The only thing I can think of is My Girl that had the bee sting.
And this was like 1970s, way before that, because then My Girl was like 1990s.
Yeah, that was many years later. Well, I think the one that became kind of the more shocker to my parents, when I was really, really little, and this does not hold to today, I was scared to death of dragons. And that's because our house, how it was situated, is right across, you can walk out on the back porch and cross kind of like a dirt road, and it was the woods. So where I live, we were always kind of concerned with things like forest fires and things like that, coming up close to the house, because at one point they did. Like, we literally had fire right behind our house. Okay. And then, I guess somewhere in my head, there was an association with dragons breathe fire.
That makes sense.
So, my nightmare was the woods were, they were like ablaze. Oh, like, fire up the trees. and I was running because my house was on fire. But I was trapped on one end, trying to get, around so I could run, get away from the fire. But a tree fell. And then this dragon stepped out of the flames.
Oh.
And I was backing up, and it set me on fire.
Wow.
So in my dream, as a tiny child, I burned to death. And it wasn't until many years later that I dreamed about a dragon again, but it was an ice dragon.
Okay.
And I made friends with that dragon, and I think my head kind of, remade some things. So now I collect a lot of things dragon, and have since, that point. But, it was a very real nightmare for me, and it was a horrific nightmare. Because how would I have known? Because as I was... Now, here's something you can read into. As I was on fire and, falling over, I could see charred people.
Ooh.
So
yeah, that's pretty intense. That's not a happy dream.
5-6 years old, and I have no idea where that came from. So that was probably the worst nightmare.
On a funnier note, I had a nightmare / real experience with the bathtub drain.
I hated bathtub drains as a kid.
Okay.
Because I always thought there was a monster that was going to...
And excuse, if I just jarred the camera. My leg is falling asleep really horribly here. We sit on the floor to film.
Yeah.
And this floor just makes our legs fall asleep. Anyway, so when I was really little, it was common to have these Sesame Street books, and my mom would read them to me.
Yeah.
And this one had, different poems in it. And in the middle of it, there's this big poem about Ernie going down the bathtub drain. And the poem was actually, really kind of, supposed to be a fun thing. He was going, different places and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be afraid of the bathtub drain because it was cool. But my brain being what it is.
It made something else.
Oh, yes. In my head, going down the bathtub drain literally meant I was going to be sucked down and, I'd be, my bones would crush and it would hurt real bad and all this stuff, things that, not a normal child would think about, but, here I'm thinking. And then I'm thinking also, well, the drains go down, so I'm going to hell. So if I go down the drain, I'm going to hell.
That was what I used to think.
Okay. So, here's my poor mother, which I have to say it this way because she's trying to give me my evening bath. And she goes to put me in the water like normal. And I scream and flail and, have a whole fit. About half knock her out because I'm falling so hard.
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, what on earth is wrong with you? And I'm like, I'm not going in the bathtub. No. She's like, okay, we'll leave it alone for the night. Well, this carried over into several days. The same thing happened. And my mom, bless her.
Your poor mom.
I put her through the devil on this.
Yeah.
Finally, I think it was day 4 or 5. I mean, this was a lot, And she finally is just like, you're starting to stink. You need a bath. You're going to have a bath. And I'm like, no, go down the drain, I'll go down the drain. And she put me in the bathtub and she shoved my foot at the drain. She's like, you're not going to go down the goddamn drain. And then I was like, oh! And then everything was fine. And she was just looking at me like, that's all it took. Great.
Kids do not come with manuals.
No. And, I was a very imaginative child, so it's not like I made it easy on my folks. But yeah, so she finally reached her limit.
Oh, that had to be.
Oh, it was funny.
So tell us what your childhood nightmares are.
Because we're sure that other people have some pretty entertaining gems like we've had.
And feel free to laugh at ours.
Yes, because, we tell them to give everybody a good chuckle, because these are pretty epic and entertaining.
So until next time.
Bye.
Bye.